Hey there everyone, welcome back to another Game Vault video. As always, I'm Captain Beefy with the Game Vault, and we're going to talk about the latest Witcher game that was just announced at the Game Awards, roughly a week ago or so. Let's cue up the music and we'll get to talking. All right, so I have yet to weigh in on this one. I was a big fan of the Witcher 3. Thought it was a fantastic game. CD Projekt Red has done some great stuff. I thoroughly enjoyed Cyberpunk 2077. I haven't played through the expansion yet. I did get the expansion. I've got to get back into the game when I find some time to play through the Phantom Liberty expansion. Looks like a blast. Idris Elba, love the guy. Should be a lot of fun. I was there day one for Cyberpunk on the PS4 Pro. I didn't suffer the problems that a lot of people had with the game as far as performance go and all that. It worked out okay for me on the Pro. I had already upgraded my Pro personally. I put a SSD drive in it. I got rid of the regular drive and put an SSD drive in it. So maybe that little upgrade gave me the edge that made it slightly more playable and a little less janky than it did for everybody else, but I didn't have the issues with it that everybody else did, so I'm happy to say. But I played the game through and thoroughly enjoyed it. So anyway, CDPR admits original author Andrzej Sapkowski was not consulted on Ciri's Witcher role in Witcher 4. So there's a lot of debate going on about The Witcher 4. Now we know Geralt is the Witcher, right? And Ciri is not the Witcher. And according to Witcher lore, which I'm not very well versed on, I'll admit, I did see a box set of the books, and I'm kind of curious, and I might pick up the box set of the books. I don't do a lot of reading. I just don't have the time for it anymore. I used to be an avid reader as a young man. But, you know, that looks like it might be a fun way to get through and read a nice little set of books there. I might pick those up just for the fun of it. But anyway, according to the lore, I guess women, for whatever reason, cannot become Witchers. So making Ciri a Witcher has caused a lot of people to get very, very upset. A lot of people are, and then you got the other side of the aisle, which is calling all those guys incels because you don't want to play as a woman. And, so here we are. It's the culture war, right? Let's see what happens. I guess Ciri's got some elf blood, so maybe that changes things. I don't know how they're going to explain this. I don't know if she's going to actually be a real Witcher, or they're just calling it The Witcher 4 for now, or what. We got to see what happens when it comes out, how it's going to be. Who knows? But anyway, CG Projekt Red has admitted it didn't consult the author regarding their decision to make Ciri a Witcher and turn her into the primary protagonist of The Witcher 4. In a recent interview with Eurogamer, The Witcher 4 game director Sebastian Kalemba and narrative director Philip Weber made it abundantly clear that the direction they're taking with Ciri's character is not only controversial, but also seemingly unsupported by the original author of the Witcher saga. When asked directly about Sapkowski's involvement with The Witcher 4, Kalemba admitted that the man who created Geralt of Rivia and Ciri had no involvement in the project whatsoever. That doesn't seem like the best of moves, as far as I'm concerned. Now, I'm not a lore whore, okay? A lot of people are huge on lore in games and all that, and they'll come at you, with all kinds of stuff whenever you say anything about a game. I'm not, I appreciate lore to some degree, but I understand there's something called adaptation, like when you adapt something, right? When you make a movie from a book, you adapt it. You're not making a carbon copy of the book into a film. Things change because you're adapting it. Sometimes you'll take multiple characters and mold them into one character for a movie just because it's confusing to have all these different characters in a movie, because you're taking this huge book and you're condensing it into a 90-minute or a 2-hour film or whatever the case may be. You're eliminating scenes, you're combining scenes, you're moving things around, and there's a lot to it. Same thing adapting a book to a video game, I would say. It's the same thing. Things change, right? There has to be some changes there. Now, basic rules, these fictional worlds always have rules to them. And you establish these rules early on. So if these rules are established, you really should stick to them. And it seems like violating this rule of a man, only a man can be a Witcher, might be a bad thing here, but I don't know. Let's see what happens here. So anyways, hands off, Columbus said, but he's not involved in the form of a consultant or whatever. We have a great relationship with him. So we meet with Andres from time to time to discuss things. Despite this claim of a great relationship, the team's decision to fully transform Ciri into a Witcher stands at odds with established lore. The debate centers around whether Ciri can or should undergo the trial of the grasses, the brutal alchemical process that creates a Witcher. Traditionally, no woman has ever survived this trial, and the very notion that Ciri could casually achieve this feat flies in the face of the franchise's foundational logic. That's a lot of F's in one sentence. In the books, women do not become Witchers, not because they lack aptitude, but because the gruesome genetic alterations that define Witcherhood simply don't allow it. This is a long-standing point of canon that fans have come to accept and respect. Yet Weber attempts to defend the choice by pointing to ambiguous textual moments. In the books, Andres called Ciri a Witcher multiple times, and Geralt called Ciri a Witcher, he said, failing to reach the straws he was grasping at. So I think that basically says what Andrzej Sapkowski thinks about the topic. But this argument overlooks the contextual meaning behind those references. Being affectionately or symbolically called a Witcher is not the same as surviving the trial of the grasses and being physically transformed into one. The difference between a term of endearment or informal title and an actual lore-backed metamorphosis is massive and has always been crystal clear to anyone familiar with the series. So is she going to be a Witcher in name only? That could be interesting, where she's not actually a real Witcher. That could make an interesting story as she's trying to fulfill that role, but she doesn't have the actual power that goes with it that's required to fulfill it. How would she make up for that? That could make for an interesting story right there. How would she make up for the shortcomings? I don't know. That's, you could see, taking this kind of a situation and doing something like that with it, that would be the smart way to do it. That would make things interesting and all that, as opposed to just, no, they called her a Witcher, so we're going to make her a Witcher. That, if that's what they do, then that's kind of lame, guys. I mean, really, that is lame. Even for me, who's not a lore hound, it's kind of like, that's lazy writing right there. And I'm not crying about it, and I'm not upset about it. I'm just saying, that's lazy writing. That's just ignoring something that is, it established part of your world, and just, because it doesn't serve your story, you just ignore it and write it off, so whatever. Anyway, far from a neutral creative decision, insisting that Ciri can be a Witcher without Sapkowski's explicit endorsement feels like the developers are putting words in the author's mouth. Columbus' admission that Sapkowski is hands-off in the development process means any supposed approval is purely inferred and likely misguided. In fact, Sapkowski has repeatedly spoken out against the games and Netflix series that adapt his work. How much substance can there be in the lines of text when the hero walks through the woods and talks to a squirrel, the author said in a reference to the games? Where's the literature in that? Where's the room for depth or sophisticated language with which games could elevate culture? There's none. He also repeatedly noted that the Netflix series similarly never asks for or listens to any of his ideas. The show's been heavily panned for switching focus off Geralt and pivoting to Ciri and Yennefer. And this is a typical thing that's been going on for quite some time in both cinema and gaming, where we are taking the male hero and replacing him with a female hero. And it's, people will refute it, and they're going to say, oh, you just, whatever, you're just misogynistic or you're sexist or whatever. But we've seen it time and time again. It's happened too often. People have referred to the MCU, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, as the MCU now, because we've watched them one by one try to replace every character with a female version of it, just about. We saw the Hulk with She-Hulk. We saw Iron Man now with Riri, or whatever her name is there. Hawkeye with his daughter. Who else? You've got Captain America with Peggy, whatever her name is, the British one. I think she's Captain Britain or whatever. I can't remember what they call her. and one by one, they're just slowly, replacing these characters with female versions of the characters or alternatives of it. And, it's like, it's tiring. The Ghostbusters to the female Ghostbusters, and on and on and on. We see it time and time again. And, it's a pattern. And if you recognize these patterns and you see it, you get tired of it. It's like, all right, well, here we go again. This is just another, it's happening again. Now, I understand that The Witcher 3 was the end of Geralt's story, and it makes sense to move on from it there. I get it. And as far as Ciri goes, if they've created a compelling story with her, and they didn't just make her a Witcher because they wanted her to be a Witcher, but they're doing something unique here, then I'm all for it. But if they just said, no, she's a Witcher because, they called her a Witcher in the book twice, well, then that's kind of lame. I don't know. We'll have to see. But the insistence that the answers in the books only works if one willingly misreads what those titles and phrases truly mean. Simply put, the narrative team's stance treats Sapkowski's nuanced storytelling and careful world building as a buffet from which they can cherry-pick convenient elements to justify a radical departure from canon. By pushing ahead with Ciri's forced Witcher status, The Witcher 4 risks disregarding the logical consistency that made the series so compelling in the first place. Lore enthusiasts who value the integrity of the narrative rightfully question such a move. Without a genuine direct endorsement from Sapkowski, and with no credible textual basis for Ciri to survive the trial, the developers' claims ring hollow. Instead of showing respect for the source material, they're twisting the author's words to legitimize a decision that undermines the franchise's core mythology. So you planning on playing The Witcher 4? And what do you guys think? Do you think they're willfully ignoring canon and disrespecting the creator? More than likely, with the way developers are these days, that's what they're doing. Developers seem to be very, very lazy these days. They seem to be more activist than developer. They seem to enjoy taking things that people love and destroying them and replacing them just to get a rise out of people. That seems to be what they're about these days. And it's frustrating and it's aggravating. And, and if that's the case, then this is something that I'd have no interest in playing. I don't mind the older look of her because she's obviously going to be older at this point. I remember when Dead Space was remade, right? What was it, a year or two ago? And Nicole first showed up and people were like, oh, they made Nicole ugly. They made her older and all that. Well, they modeled Isaac after the voice actor, and Isaac is significantly older than he was when he first voiced the game. So they made Nicole look roughly his age, and and she's a doctor and all that, and it worked out perfect. She was a beautiful older woman. She they didn't make her ugly. They matured her, and that's what they did with Ciri here. Yeah, the facial structure is a little different and all that with the art direction and all that. I'm really, I don't see the man jaw or any of that stuff like they've done with some of the other characters and all that, but it is what it is here. Hopefully they're going to try to tell a compelling story. Hopefully they're going to try to make her try to fill the shoes of a Witcher when she's not really one, and make it about that kind of a struggle. That would be fascinating. That would be great, but I pretty much guarantee you that's not what it's going to be about. Let me know what your thoughts are down below in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and ring that bell for notifications. I will see you guys next time. Until then, peace.